What's the emphasis that you place on return to play guys, and what's the protocols behind that?
So we've got a rough idea of like where their training loads at, because we've tracked the RPEs the right way through. So we usually got it's not a perfect measure by any means, but it's one that you can do en masse fairly easy, as long as you can get teenage boys to do what they're told, which is probably not that easy all the time.
Hard.
So obviously we've got a few guys where we've got our GPS metrics, so we can use that to know where they need to get to. But we know roughly for each player, we'll know what they're returning for. Like, are they returning to play club rugby? Are they returning to go to international rugby? And again, because we've got that kind of close connection that we're all under the one roof, we know if guys are going into under 18s camp, we know what we would expect to see that. Like, we know it's a double day. So like it usually be like a Friday afternoon where they would lift and then rugby, and then like a Saturday they would rugby in the morning, rugby in the afternoon, and a Sunday would tend to be like a rugby and a lift, and then away. So we know like they need to go 3 days back to back with like a few lifting sessions in there. So we know what we need to prepare those guys for, and we know the kind of distances and the session duration. Like even if you just look at a real easy figure of like how many minutes training, like we know what we need to have guys prepared for. And so it's just kind of try to figure that out as best we can. Again, it's case by case. That could be when you're having to, so we've got a guy currently who trains with me on a Tuesday morning where he does gym and then a little bit of rugby, and then in the afternoon he goes back to his club and does like off-feet conditioning just to get that experience, a double day in there, so that we can then prepare him best possible for going into like his 18s camps and stuff like that. So it's all a case by case, and just having an awareness of starting at the end, and then let's just work our way back, like figure it out that way, kind of reverse engineering.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know that SRU and most rugby sort of countries are putting a big emphasis on is the concussion protocols and how that all measures up. How do you usually deal with concussions, and how do you sort of progress your players through
it? So that would, the majority, well, all of that would be kind of handled medically. So we just sort of get the guys when at the right time for getting them. It's certainly been a massive focus. I know they have just kind of changed the protocol slightly around what we do, and part of that is just kind of what we've already been speaking about. Is what we found is certainly with under 18s, like they're extra, for a good reason, like extra cautious around that. And if you have so many within a year, like it's a kind of almost like a doubled return time before you're back. So you can have a guy missing like a month, 6 weeks of training whilst he's recovering from concussion. But the issue with that is if it's 6 weeks complete rest, like that chronic load is gone, and then you're then wanting that guy to be playing 2 weeks later because he's out of concussion protocol, and say, well, this guy's got zero training load, so like that's not a possibility. So they have looked at changing that to kind of allow more of what we were speaking about earlier, of that low level stuff, like even if it is just non-strenuous like lifting and like fairly easy aerobic work, just to get some mileage in, some kind of energy system work, so that they're not totally starting from scratch. That's been a kind of way that they've refined the concussion protocol that we use just now. But I think I really should know off by heart. Hopefully my work listens to it, but I think it's like 21 days is kind of like what they look at for like an under 18 before they're back into it. Again, if it's been multiple concussions that extent.
Yeah.